There's always room to adjust and hack up our games to fit our new ideas, especially a game like ICRPG. But sometimes we're not always aware how our changes are going to affect things. Is it going to be for the good or for bad? Well, Nightworm did that and introduced a few new tags that I think have the potential for some big possibilities with just a small little change. And that's by introducing big and small effort. Now, what is that? What does Nightworm mean when he says big and small effort? Well, do you know about advantage and disadvantage, right? It's the concept of rolling twice on a die and then taking either the higher or the lower. Well, interesting enough, ICRPG does not include this very common mechanic that's in a lot of other games in some form or another. There's no advantage or disadvantage included in this book. But Nightworm thought to himself, what if we took that common mechanic and not just apply it to our checks and our attempts with that d20, what if we took it and applied it to our effort rolls with our basic, our weapon, our guns, our energy, our ultimate? What would we call that? And this is where I really love community contributions to the system, because if you take into account the natural language, the ease of customization that Index Card RPG has, and you really lean into that, you can find a way to introduce new things into the game that feel like a natural fit. And Nightworm did this by calling this idea, this slight tweak to disadvantage and advantage, by calling it big and small effort. Simply, when you roll big effort, you roll twice on your effort die and take the higher die. Or if you roll small effort, you roll twice on the die and take the lower effort. It blew my mind when I heard about it, because again, I'm familiar with advantage and disadvantage, but applying it in effort this new way felt you felt fun. It felt unique, and it felt like a way to again broaden the potential customization or opportunity to dial in exactly what I want. So let's try kind of in a couple of examples. So let me try to pull some magic or tech wizardry up here. I have a couple dice. So these are d20. So again, advantage, disadvantage, you roll twice on the d20, and you take either the higher roll, which would be 14 in this case, or 9 for disadvantage. Well, that's advantage, disadvantage. Big effort, for example, if I'm rolling 2 d12s, I'll get out of here, d20. There we go. If I'm rolling 2 d12s for ultimate, say for example a critical hit on a reactor at the very end of Last Flight of the Red Sword, and everything has come together, we've rolled that nat 20, the reactor is ready and set to overload, and I want to add in that hero coin and everything like that. Well, I can say, instead of just ultimate, I can say roll big ultimate. It was critical, it was awesome. So I roll my d12s, get the result, and now instead of a 1 on that d12, I get the 10, plus my ultimate bonus, plus whatever hero coins or anything else that I might be able to add in. That's my big ultimate effort, and I get a chance of getting a slightly higher roll, in this case, of a larger roll. Now, we can do that for our players with our items. Perhaps there's a magic item that gives, instead of just rolling magic effort, it rolls big magic effort. So say like a single use magical like bomb that goes off, that's been charged by a wizard for the last 500 years as he's slept in magical stasis, and it goes off for big effort. Well, I'm going to roll a 2d10, and I'm going to take the bigger number, in this case 9, plus my magic effort, plus whatever else is get added in. Or perhaps I have a rusty sword that I picked up from a goblin. Well, my weapon broke, and so I needed something, and so I picked up I took the sword from his hand, and I tried to hack and slash my way back into the fight. Well, the goblin sword was not very good. It was rusty, it was cracked, it was broken in half. So rather than rolling big effort, maybe I'm going to roll small effort with this weapon. So I take my d6 for my weapon effort, and in this case I take the 3 plus my bonus rather than the 5. So in just a one single word, big or small, you can add in a little bit of variety or a little bit more control into exactly what you want to be using. And now you can add a little bit more variation into your items, into your abilities, into your spells, into your monsters. For example, like we have, again, let's go back to that D12. We have an ogre who is going to roll a big effort on his ultimate strike with his giant club or his body slam. So now we have ogres that are dealing big ultimate effort on, rather than a 3, they roll a 6 plus their bonuses, which in case of an ogre is pretty big. Or perhaps instead of a big effort, they do body slam and everyone in the near vicinity has to roll dex, or they take small basic effort. So instead of a single D4, they roll there and they take 2. So now you can be a little bit more generous when you're saying, hey, I'm going to roll small basic, and it's going to be automatic, so you know that it's going to be a little bit lower, hopefully, on what you're rolling there. I hope you can see how just these two tags suddenly opens up possibilities and get your mind racing. Oh, how can I create an item that's not just magic, it's big or small? How can I create a monster that's big, has big or small effort? How can I create an ability? All on and on. How can you customize all of these just a little bit more to add that much variation that just makes it feel more unique for what you're doing? But Nightworm doesn't stop there. No, he doesn't stop there with just big and small effort. Okay, ICRPG has the effort rolls. It's an iconic part of the game. But you know what else is an iconic part of the game? Timers, right? So we've got our D4s here. Well, what if we did the same thing, but big and small doesn't sound as good with timers. Roll a big dying timer or a small dying timer. Yeah, it could work. Natural language always feels good, but maybe there's something a little bit more on point for time. Well, he suggested using more or less. Okay, so roll a dying timer with more. Well, I'm going to roll a dying timer with this. Instead of a 1, I take a 4. Awesome. I have more time to do what I need to do. I have more time to save my friend and before he passes on to the great adventuring beyond, right? Or you're trying to do something, you have a little bit more time, so roll a dying timer with more. Well, in this case, it's the double. That's too bad. The dice have spoken. You don't have a lot of time, regardless. Okay, but what happens if you're, say, dying on the edge of a volcanic river after losing to the high ground and ignoring that? Perhaps you roll for less time, and instead of a 2, you take a 1. It becomes a lot more serious when you have less time to do things, and you roll those 2d4s to see how much less time. Or perhaps somebody had a critical fail on stopping the timer before the bomb goes off on the ship. Okay, you have less time than you think. Well, in this case, thankfully, the dice have spoken. You have 4 rounds left to go. More or less, big and small. 2 simple to 2 tags, 4 tags that again give you as a GM more control and variation in what you're doing. And as players, you become familiar with these terms so that as the GM speaks and says big, small, more or less, that natural language comes out and you can immediately jump into, oh, I need to roll 2 of these. I need to go for these. I need to go for these. And you can have a little bit more of an impact on saying this is going to roll big effort. Oh, no, it's not just 1 D12, it's 2 D12 and hope, let's hope both roll small. Or you have more time. I feel better. We have more time. Let's let the dice speak. Ultimately, this is the power of having just small changes that can have these big impacts like Nightworm did. And I'm so excited to drop these into my game more often because I do think that they're a natural fit into ICRPG. Similar to how hanging by a hand and hanging by a finger just makes sense and feels good in the game, I felt the same way about big and small effort and more or less time as a tool for GM to use. Maybe not all the time, but some of the time. Hey Siri, what's the probability of rolling 3 doubles in a row on a D20?
Here's what I found.
Well, that's not helpful.